everyone. I'd like to give a warm welcome to all of you out there. My name is Renee, and you're going to be watching Renee's Health Corner. Believe it or not, God really does care about your health. In 2022, just about everywhere you look, sickness and disease is on the rise. In America, 4,000 times a day, someone has a heart attack, and a new diabetic is discovered every 50 seconds. 1 out of 4 people have cancer, and that's 25% of the American population. There's also a rise in the number of strokes per year, gastrointestinal problems, lupus, multiple sclerosis, and a whole bunch of other diseases. And the question is why? Many people believe that God is to blame, but is that really the case? In 3 John 2, we're told, "Beloved, I wish above all things that thou mayest prosper and be in health, even as thy soul prospereth." So that doesn't tell me that God wants us to be sick. So if he wants us to be in health and disease is more rampant now than ever before, the question is why? Well, today I'm going to share with you some of that, and I'm going to be talking to you about milk, eggs, and butter. And remember, everything I share today is supported by medical research, the Bible, the Spirit of Prophecy, our pioneers who had a lot to say about health that Sister White endorsed. And I'm not going to ask you to buy any quick pills or any pills or quick fix elixirs. As a matter of fact, you're not required to purchase anything. I just ask that you have a listening ear and a sharing spirit so that what you learn, you can use to help others someday yourself. Now, in the Bible, we're also told that the curse causeless shall not come, and that's Proverbs 26:2. And in Job 29:16, it says, "The cause which I knew not, I searched out." And then 1 Corinthians 10:3 says, "Whether therefore ye eat or drink, or whatsoever ye do, do all to the glory of God." So whatever we put in our bodies should be glorifying God. Now we're told in the Spirit of Prophecy to educate people in regard to the laws of life, and that's GCDB, January 30, 1893, paragraph 2. Well, why should we educate people? Well, we're told so that they may know how to preserve health, and that's in MM 259, paragraph 3. We're told education should be given on proper diet in CD 406, paragraph 4. And then one of my favorite quotes is in Ministry of Healing, page 127, says, "Disease is an effort of nature to free the system from conditions that result from a violation of the laws of health." And then on the same book on page 234, it says, "Disease never comes without a cause. The way is prepared, and disease invited by disregard of the laws of health." So we bring it on ourselves because we do things we shouldn't be doing. We're also told in the Living Manuscript Release, page 187, to become more intelligent in regard to the laws of life. And then again, Counsels on Diet and Foods, page 102, says, "Be sure that as a rational Christian sentinel, you guard the door of your stomach, allowing nothing to pass your lips that will be an enemy to your health and life." And then on page 457, same book, says, "Abstinence from all hurtful food and drink is the fruit of true religion." And then on page 198, the same book says, "The idea should never be given that it is of but little consequence what we eat." And one last quote is from Temperance, page 138, says, "Dispense entirely with everything hurtful and use judiciously that which is healthful." So here we go. First subject today is milk. Now we're told in Counsels on Diet and Foods, page 356, milk should not be classed with flesh meat. I hear a lot of health people who talk about milk call it liquid meat, and I believe it. That's true. Now here's the history of milk consumption among God's people. 3T, page 21 says, "Salt, sugar, and milk. We know that a free use of these things is positively injurious to health. And in many cases, we think that if they were not used at all, a much better state of health would be enjoyed." Now, this was way back in 1871, so imagine what it's like today. And continuing on, we bear positive testimony against tobacco, spirituous liquors, snuff, tea, coffee, flesh meats, butter, Spices, rich cakes, mince pies, a large amount of salt, and all exciting substances used as articles of food. Now, in 1901, in Councils on Diet and Foods, on page 204, it says, "We appreciate your experience as a physician, and yet I say that milk and eggs should be included in your diet. But these things cannot at present be dispensed with, and the doctrine of dispensing with them should not be taught." That was in 1901. But then it says the time will soon come when there will be no safety in using eggs, milk, cream, butter, because disease in animals is increasing in proportion to the increase of wickedness among men. Notice it said the time would soon come. Soon doesn't mean 100 years later, and it's way past that now. So the time has come now when we have to get rid of using milk, cream, eggs, butter, etc., because there is no safety in using these items anymore today because the animals are so full of disease. And the quote in Councils on Diet and Foods, page 365 says, "As disease in animals increases, the use of milk and eggs will become more and more unsafe. An effort should be made to supply their place with other things that are healthful and inexpensive. The people everywhere should be taught how to cook without milk and eggs as far as possible, and yet have their food wholesome and palatable." And then we're also told that God would reveal the time when it was no longer safe to use these things, and I believe that that time is here right now. So milk was supposed to be from a healthy cow. Back in Sister White's day, the cows were healthy. They weren't messing with them like they do today. And it wasn't objectionable back then for them to eat those things because the time hadn't come yet then. But today, cows are not healthy. And we're even told in Councils on Diet and Foods, page 330, a cow may be apparently well in the morning and die before night. Then she was diseased in the morning and her milk was diseased, but you didn't know it. And that's what happens today. And I've heard it from people who do farming and milk cows and sell it, to the suppliers, to send to the store for people to drink. And I heard a story years ago from a man who said that he personally knew someone, and he said that he went to pick up the milk and there was blood in the milk. And he told the farmer, "I can't pick this up." He's like, "Why not? The other guy did it." And so he called his boss, and the boss said, "Oh, just pick it up and bring it in." And they throw it in with the other milk and mix it all up. So then by that time you can't see the blood. And the guy didn't feel right about doing that. And so he said, "No, I can't do it." And so they sent someone else to do it. Now, the dangers of milk today is, like I said, the cows are diseased. They've been tested positive for things like AIDS, bovine leukemia, cancer, mad cow disease, tuberculosis, and tumors. And so today, milk contains antibiotics and blood and carbon monoxide, which is injected into it, and hormones and infection and pus, and viruses are legally sprayed on it even. So some of the health issues that are related to drinking milk are acne, allergies, anemia, asthma, calcium deficiency because there's too much protein from the milk, diabetes type 1 and 2, IBS, infections, heart disease, increases your cholesterol levels, inflammation, Crohn's disease, kidney stones, mucus buildup, sinus problems, salmonella poisoning, tuberculosis, tumors, breast cancer, other types of cancer, and much, much more. Now, there's a website you can go to. Now, this guy is not an Adventist, but he has some very, very good information. And it's called notmilk.com. It's www.notmilk.com. I highly recommend you go to his website and read some of the dangers and the things that he tells about drinking milk. Very, very good. And the next subject I'm going to talk about is eggs. Now, the history of egg consumption among us, we read in Councils on Diet and Foods, page 353, paragraph 2, the poor say, when health reform is presented to them, what shall we eat? We cannot afford to buy the nut foods, And as I preach the gospel to the poor, I'm instructed to tell them to eat the food which is most nourishing. I cannot say to them, you must not eat eggs or milk or cream. You must use no butter in the preparation of food. The gospel must be preached to the poor, and the time has not yet come to prescribe the strictest diet. But today, it has become that time. That was written in 1901, and here we are in 2022. I'd say that time has long come. So God revealed that in 2016, it is no longer safe to be using these items such as milk, cream, eggs, and butter. And 2016, revealed to us today, in 2022, 2016 too, and before that even, way back, before 2000 ever began, things were getting bad. Now, Councils on Diet and Foods, page 356, says milk, eggs, butter shouldn't be classed with flesh meat, but in some cases, the use of eggs can be beneficial. The time has not come to say that the use of milk and eggs should be wholly discarded. Again, that was in 1902, and the time has now come. But if back then they used eggs from hens that were well cared for and suitably fed, eggs do contain properties that have remedial agencies. Now, there was a story about a doctor who was very weak, and I'm going to get to that in a minute, and the eggs did help him. So one of the remedial agencies found in an egg is called albumin. And eggs are mixed in grape juice, and it's very, very helpful for those who are anemic and weak. But there's other options you can do as well, because in today's day, we have to be so careful in using any egg. Now, here's the quote about the grape juice and the eggs. I have received light that you are injuring your body by a poverty-stricken diet. It is a lack of suitable food that has caused you to suffer so keenly. You have not taken the food essential to nourish your frail physical strength. You must not deny yourself of good, wholesome food. Get eggs of healthy fowls. Good luck finding that today. Use these eggs, cooked or raw. Drop them into the best unfermented wine, she's talking about grape juice, that you can find. This will supply that which is necessary to your system. Eggs contain properties which are remedial agencies in counteracting poisons. Now, this was to Dr. D.H. Kress. He accepted the counsel. He followed the raw egg and grape juice regimen regularly until his death in 1956 at the age of 94. And he was suffering from anemia. And because the good blood transfusion was almost impossible to get back in those days, the grape juice and the raw egg remedy was recommended to him, and it helped him. It saved his life. And the remedy gives energy and helps with weakness due to anemia. But remember, that remedy was suggested back in 1901 when it was not time to say eggs were unfit for consumption. Today they are. And there's other remedies we can do for anemia. And if you're interested in any of that, you can email me. I don't know if I've given my email out or not before. I can't remember. But it's Renee, R-E-N-E-E, Bushor, B-U-S-H-O-R, @gmail.com. And you're welcome to message me with questions or anything. And anyway, so we're also told that the diet reform should be progressive. And as disease in animals increases, the use of milk and eggs will become more and more unsafe. And that, again, has already happened. It's past that time. And God is going to give his people ability and tact to prepare wholesome food without using these things. And she's referring to milk and eggs, cream, butter, etc. And that's 7135, paragraph 2. So here's a positive sign for us in these days that eggs are no longer safe to use. Not one of them is that chickens have the bird flu. And back in 2010, they recalled 500 million eggs. Now there's going to be a couple links below you can click on and read more information. And did you know that eggshells have over 8,000 microscopic pores? Excuse me. So it's very easy for salmonella and other bacteria to penetrate the eggshell, the egg through the shell, Now, think back. Did you ever dye eggs? Years ago, I dyed eggs when I was a little girl, and We would get that colored dye and put it in the water, and then we dip the eggs in it and color the eggs. Well, guess what? The next day you go to peel that egg and it was purple or green or blue or yellow. Because there's pores, tiny little pores in those eggshells, the dye went through and went into the egg. Shocking, yeah. I know. When I found that out, I was like, wow, that is something else. So just remember, the egg only has one exit, and that's out of the chicken's butt, to be frank. And when it comes out, it's coming out through there, and pieces of feces can go through those little tiny pores and get into the egg, and you eat it and you don't even know it. Now, Dr. Michael Greger, he debunked the egg industry with much information. He said egg yolks alone in non-smokers were associated with artery clogging plaque buildup was nearly 2/3 as bad as smoking. Wow, can you believe that? I can. Eggs are the #1 source of cholesterol in the diet. Blood cholesterol concentration is clearly increased by adding dietary cholesterol. 1 year in the life of a study subject showed an increase in cholesterol when eggs were added to their diet, and cholesterol lowered when eggs were removed from the same person's diet. So do eggs increase our risk of cardiovascular disease or not? In compilations of all the best studies going way back to 1930, when you put them all together, this is what we find. Those who eat the most eggs have a 19% increase of cardiovascular disease, a 68% increase of diabetes, and once you get diabetes, you have an 85% increase of heart disease. A single egg a day was associated with a significant increase in heart disease. Just over half an egg a day could increase heart disease risk between 6 and 40%, and the risk of diabetes by 29%. Your best bet is to leave eggs alone altogether. Now, here's some more drawbacks of eating eggs. It's high in saturated fat, responsible for as much plaque buildup in the arteries as smoking cigarettes, increases the risk of developing type 2 diabetes. The fats in eggs may harm the liver, causing non-alcoholic fatty liver disease. They're high in toxins, high incidences of salmonella poisoning, high in cholesterol, and they alter your biochemical, genetic, and molecular makeup. Other problems with eating eggs is arthritis, breast cancer, like I mentioned, diabetes, fibroid tumors, heart attacks, heart disease, impotence, infertility, inflammation. 1 egg can cause inflammation in the body for up to 30 days. Wow, that's a long time for 1 egg. Menstrual irregularities, migraines, plaque buildup, and much, much more. Okay, that's it about eggs. Now we're going to move on to butter. Butter, freely partaken of by both old and young. These things do their work in deranging the stomach, exciting the nerves, enfeebling the intellect. The blood-making organs cannot convert such things into good blood. That's in CTBH, page 46, paragraph 3. Now, butter and meat, but we're talking about butter, but meat's included in the quote, stimulate. These have injured the stomach, perverted the taste, the sensitive nerves of the brain have been benumbed, animal appetite is strengthened, and eternal things have not been discerned. And paralysis has benumbed and the spiritual and the devotional, and that's Counsels on Diet and Foods, page 48, paragraph 2. Now, because we from principle discard the use of butter, and it lists other things too in the quote, but we're talking about butter today. The idea should never be given that it is of but little consequence what we eat. Many people think we can eat whatever we want. That's not true. We're specifically told what we can and cannot eat. And so that's Counsels on Diet and Foods, page 198, paragraph 4. And then page 206 says, I wish to say that when the time comes, it is no longer safe to use butter. God will reveal this. And as I mentioned earlier, he surely has revealed it. Not just in eggs and milk, but also in butter. And now butter is not safe today to eat either. You can place upon your tables butter eggs, meat, and your children partake of them. They are fed with the very things that excite their animal passions. And then you come to meeting and ask God to bless and save your children? How high do your prayers go? You have a work to do first. When you have done all for your children, which God has left for you to do, then you can, with confidence, claim the special help that God has promised to give you. That's Counsels on Diet and Foods, page 245, paragraph 3. What a beautiful quote. Now, Counsels on Diet and Foods, again, page 260 says, many don't feel that this cooking is a matter of duty. Hence, they don't try to prepare food properly. This can be done in a simple, healthful, and easy manner, without the use of lard, butter, or flesh meats. Skill must be united with simplicity. To do this, women must read and then patiently reduce what they read to practice, and learn how to cook with simplicity and yet in a manner to secure the most palatable and healthful foods. I love to cook, and I've been told that I'm an excellent cook. And I praise God for that, because that is a talent. And it really doesn't take a lot to learn how to cook. You can watch many videos nowadays and follow a recipe. It's very easy to do. And remember, we're counseled to read the book How to Live and to know how to cook. And that's in 1 Testimonies, page 680, paragraph 2. And also Counsels on Diet and Foods, page 323 says, we do not think fried potatoes are healthful, for there is more or less grease or butter used in preparing them. Good baked or boiled potatoes served with cream and a sprinkle of salt are the most healthful. Now, back then, cream was safe to use. It is not today. Today, we can use a little olive oil with some salt or whatever herbs or seasoning you want. Rosemary is very good with some olive oil. And I make my own vegan-based sour cream, which is very, very good. In fact, my friend gave it to her husband, who would not try it, but he would eat the regular sour cream. So one day she just made his lunch and put my sour cream on his burrito, I think it was they were having, and he ate it and never knew the difference. She did eventually tell him, but I thought it was pretty funny. Anyway, butter should not be placed on the table, we're told, in Counsels on Diet and Foods, page 350. HFM, page 50, says great reforms are to be made. Many changes will be required as we strive to advance the cause of reform. Reforms are not to be brought in as innovations, but as natural consequences. Then they will be great blessings. Then, same book, next paragraph says, there's danger that in presenting the principles of health reform, some will be in favor of bringing in changes that would be far worse instead for the better. Health reform must not be urged in a radical manner, as the situation now is. We cannot say that milk, eggs, and butter should be entirely discarded. But remember, again, this was in 1901, and science has proved today that butter is not healthful. So we have to let the diet reform be progressive. We don't just tell people give up the meat, the eggs, the butter, the sugar, the milk, everything all at once. You know, they have to, some people might want to, and that's okay, they can, but a person could get sick from doing it like that. So let it be progressive, you know, start cutting down the meat to just a couple times a week and, you know, get used to that, and then cut out something else. And that's the way I did it years ago. But you know, I first gave up the red meat, then I gave up the chicken and turkey, then I gave up the fish, then I gave up the dairy and the eggs. Counsel on Diet Foods, page 351 says, I ate but 2 meals a day and still follow the light given me 35 years ago. I use no meat, and as for myself, I have settled the butter question. I do not use it. This question should easily be settled in every place. Now, that was in 1898. So Sister White quit using it long ago. Now it says butter is less harmful when eaten on cold bread than when used in cooking. But as a rule, it is better to dispense with it altogether. Again, this was in 1905 now. Not that long, 10 years before she died. So that's in Counsels on Diet and Foods, page 349. Now the advantages sought by the use of butter may be obtained by the eating of properly prepared olives. And that's Counsels on Diet and Foods, page 349. We're told that olives can be eaten with every meal. I just thought of that now, so I don't have the reference off the top of my head, but you can look it up. And olives are excellent. They're excellent for everything, and they can be eaten with every meal. So as I mentioned before when I did the food combination video, you can eat them with fruit or vegetables. So here's another quote from 1904, Councils on Diet and Foods, page 351, paragraph 3 says, "We must remember there are a great many different minds in the world, and we cannot expect everyone to see exactly as we do in regard to all questions of diet. Minds do not run in exactly the same channel. I do not eat butter, but there are members of my family who do. It is not placed on my table, but I make no disturbance because some members of my family choose to eat it occasionally." Basically, you just can't nag at people and tell them quit eating it, because that's not going to help them. So, they have different minds and they're going to do what they want. And so many of our conscientious brethren have butter on their tables. And of course, back then, it wasn't a big deal. It wasn't as bad as it is today. And she says, "I feel under no obligation to force them to do otherwise. These things should never be allowed to cause disturbance among brethren. I cannot see the need of butter where there is abundance of fruit and sterilized cream." Again, back then, cream was okay. This was in 1904. And now today, we are to teach people to cook without these things. A good cream substitute is coconut milk or coconut cream. Very, very good. In fact, if you put it like on asparagus, I had a friend whose son hated asparagus. He wouldn't touch it with a 10-foot pole. So one day she put some coconut cream or milk on it. I can't remember which one of the two, and served it to him and asked him to try it. And he did, and he loved it. So that was amazing. Try it. And I've tried coconut milk on collard greens, and it's very, very good too. So the dangers of butter today, again, is because cows have mad cow disease, they have AIDS, bovine leukemia, tuberculosis, tumors, cancer, and butter's made from cream, and cream is the fat of the milk, which comes from a cow. So that's why we're talking about cows. And so milk contains, antibiotics, blood, hormones, infection, pus, and health issues that are related to eating butter is heart disease, high blood pressure, increased cholesterol, and more. Now, here's a little history about butter. Butter was not a common article of food anciently, as today. The Greeks and the Romans used it only for medicinal purposes. 11 million cows supply 40 million inhabitants with milk, butter, and cheese, and allow large exports of the latter article. At least 255 million gallons of milk are sold annually. The annual butter product of our country now is more than 500 million pounds, and of cheese, 70 million. There are now about 30 million horned cattle in the U.S., equal in average quality to those of any country in the world. And the cow gives us milk, butter, glue, leather for our shoes and carriage and harness, and hair for plastering. Now, these are quotes from the Pioneer section, and one of them is from SNH BHB 167.8. The other one is 1887 URS MANA 35.2, and then January 18, 1894 EJW PT UK 45.6. Now, butter is not margarine, and margarine is not butter. I heard a health speaker say if you're going to eat margarine, you might as well eat the container, because that's about what you're eating is plastic. Now, in July 11, 1901, EJW PTUK says, page 444, in imposing a fine upon an East Ham tradesman for selling margarine as butter, and who pleaded it was an assistant's mistake. The magistrate very pertinently replied, "It is curious that the mistake is always in favor of the tradesman, and that one never hears of butter being sold as margarine." There's a sermon in that. February 25, 1889, EJW SITI 128 says circulars had been sent us by Mr. Alex J. Wedderburn, editor of the National Farm and Fireside, advocating the bills now before Congress in favor of pure food and pure lard. We hope they will pass. They ought to pass. Pure food is necessary to health. If a man purchases flour, it is not plasters of Paris or ground tail. If he purchases butter, he wants butter, not oleomargarine. So margarine is one molecule away from being plastic, and it's not a food, and it's not healthy. So That's why this one health speaker said, if you're going to eat margarine, you might as well eat the container. Now, some couple more quotes from our pioneers say, we bear positive testimony against tobacco, liquors, tea, coffee, flesh meats, butter, and spices, rich cakes, mince pies, and a large amount of salt, and all exciting substances used as articles of food. And then in 1868, JNL HBH 189 paragraph 1 says, why are butter and animal oils and fats objectionable as articles of food? Well, it's because they are too concentrated for human ailment. They are but slightly nutritious and are filled with impure material, comparing very well with venous blood for impurity. They contain about 80% of carbon and hence furnish additional labor to the lungs to expel this from the system. Butter, when taken into the system, takes the form of an animal oil. These oils float on top of the food and remain in the stomach till all other portions of food have been simified and passed from the stomach. Hence, they are liable to generate rancid acids in the stomach. And even when the food is passed from the stomach, these oils are not digestible until bile, in the unnatural way mentioned in the last chapter, passes from the duodenum to the stomach and turns the oil into a substance, a saponaceous substance, before it can be acted upon by the gastric juice and digested. So butter should never be used in a melted form, it says, nor upon anything hot enough to melt it. Wow, that was interesting. Now there's health problems, of course, from butter, as I mentioned before, and one more quote from the Pioneer section. Then I'm going to give you a few recipes. The painful sores which came upon my underlip every few weeks in former years have absolutely discontinued their visitations. These things I attribute largely to the entire disuse of butter. That's 1890 JW BHY 267 paragraph 2. Now, instead of drinking milk, you can make your own milk, and it's very simple and very easy and very cheap. What I do is I buy the slivered almonds, and that way you don't have to take the skin off of the almonds. And you just take a half a cup of those almonds and 4 cups of water and maybe a tablespoon of some type of sweetener, honey, or I use unrefined cane sugar or maple syrup you can use, or even dates, and a half a teaspoon of salt, and blend that all up, and it's ready to go. If you want to eat it right away, you could put some ice in there in place of some of the water, or I just make it the night before and put it in the fridge, and by morning it's good. The only thing you have to do is shake it before you use it, because the fat from the nuts will separate from the water, and it looks really weird, but it's fine. And it keeps at least a good week in the fridge. And so another thing you can do is, instead of eating eggs, you can make scrambled tofu. You just take some tofu, and I use my own homemade chicken style seasoning, and some garlic and onion powder and some salt and a little bit of turmeric to make it yellow. Puts in some bell peppers and tomatoes, and cook that up till the water all is gone and disappears, and it looks kind of rubbery like a real scrambled egg. It's delicious. And you can even make your own butter, and I'm going to give you a recipe now for making your own butter. And there's only 5 ingredients, and it's very good for you. So there's no cholesterol, and it tastes like the real thing. Pretty much. It's better than any vegan butter on the market, because even those are not healthy. And there's no canola oil in it, no MSG, no garbage, nothing. You can spread it on corn on the cob, you can put it on toast, use it in cookie recipes, melt it and put it on popcorn, put it on your veggies if you want. Just about any recipe that calls for butter. I've never had a problem using this as a substitute, and you use it the exact same. If recipe calls for a 1/4 cup of butter, you use a 1/4 cup of this butter. So what you do is you take 1 1/4 cups of coconut oil, and I use the extra virgin, first cold press. Some people don't use it because they say they can taste coconut, but we can't. And they'll buy a different brand that's refined, but refined isn't really good for you. So anyway, a 1 1/4 cup coconut oil, and I use organic, 3/4 cup of olive oil, first cold pressed, 2 tablespoons of lecithin oil. Make sure you get organic or non-GMO. If you can't find it, which I can't, I use the granules, and I can find that non-GMO and organic, and then you have to double it. So that would be 4 tablespoons. And then a cup of water, boiling water that is, and 1 tablespoon plus 1 teaspoon of pink salt. You just put that olive oil and the coconut oil and the lecithin in the blender and blend it till it's all blended up. Then slowly add your, you put the salt in the boiling water and mix it up, and then slowly add that in the blender while it's blending, and blend it till it gets thick. It's going to take a good minute or so. And then pour it in a container. It's all liquidy, but then put it in the fridge and it will harden up. Excellent, excellent butter. So anyway, I also highly recommend a book called Health Power. It was written by Dr. Hans Diehl, who is known for the CHIP program. His books have over 2 million copies in 17 languages, and it covers these subjects today that I talked about, and many other topics that I've covered in the past or will cover in the future. It also includes natural laws that I've talked about before, and you can look it up on Amazon or do a Google search and find that. And so, well, that's our time for today, and I hope that what you heard on here will be a blessing to you and your family, and that until we meet again, may the good Lord bless and keep you throughout the week. And remember, God loves you and He wants you to be in health. So eat that which is good. Bye-bye.